This is part 2 of Can You Beat Fallout New Vegas as Yandere-Chan. Be sure you've watched part 1 first. Now taking the roads to get to the New Vegas Strip, Ayano actually bumps into a traveling merchant near the Grab and Gulp who is selling the Protective Sheath, which is the final mod for the katana, so she goes ahead and purchases that. Then of course she attaches the mod to the katana, which will give her a perfect endgame weapon. Following the roads, Ayano reaches the entrance to Freeside and heads right in. The thugs in Freeside see the strange schoolgirl running around and think it's an easy target, but little do they know that she's carrying a knife and a katana sword and a baseball bat and a shovel, and she knows how to use these weapons. A couple of them even try luring her into an alleyway to jump her, but it just ends with them getting chopped to pieces. With Freeside's thugs now wisely staying as far away from the schoolgirl with the knife as they can, she reaches the entrance to the New Vegas Strip. Old Ben lets her know to talk to the gate greeter, and since Ayano has more than enough bottle caps, the robots let her pass. As soon as she is on the New Vegas Strip, Ayano runs straight for the Lucky 38, but Victor stops her and lets her know that she has to go to the Lucky 38. Well, yeah, that's where she was off to anyways. She wanted to go and find her senpai, who was supposed to be waiting there, according to Victor himself. Ayano runs into the Lucky 38 and calls out for her senpai as soon as she's inside, but there's no answer. In a frantic haste, she searches the casino for him, but doesn't find him anywhere. Victor somehow is at the elevator ahead of her, and instructs her to take it up to the penthouse floor of the Lucky 38. That must mean senpai is there, right? Wrong. Instead, waiting for her in the penthouse is Mr. House, who explains to Ayano that he knows exactly who she is, and recognized her uniform when she first appeared in Good Springs as that of an Akademi High student. He explains to her that he was born in the year 2020, the same decade where Akademi was destroyed by an explosion caused by the Science Club. Several people had gone missing that same week, and two of them happened to be Ayano herself and Taro Yamada, her senpai. The names of the other girls that appeared, Ayano recognized their names as well. They were the names of her rivals back when she was a student at Akademi. He informs her that the year is now 2281, and that Akademi has been destroyed for nearly 260 years. But he also tells her that her senpai is alive and safe, and that he has the technology to bring him to her, but first she must complete a task for him. This task involves securing the free economic zone of New Vegas, but the first step to doing this is recovering the platinum chip from Benny. Mr. House also admits that the snow globes are actually meant for him and not for senpai, but that if Ayano does all of this for him and brings him every snow globe in the Mojave Wasteland, she will be reunited with her senpai upon her successful operation. So, of course, she agrees to help him. Upon leaving the Lucky 38, an NCR emissary gives her a note from Ambassador Crocker, and Ayano can't help but notice that a lot of people are now staring at her since she just came out of a building that nobody had ever gone into in 200 years. Mr. House let Ayano know where the other snow globes he wanted are, so after pickpocketing the key off of Sarah Weintraub in the Vault 21 hotel, she breaks into Sarah's room and takes the snow globe from it to bring back to Mr. House. Yan-chan then runs to the tops, but the door greeter asks that she give up any weapons that she's carrying before she'll be allowed into the casino. Ayano hands over the baseball bat, the shovel, and the katana, but keeps all of her knives on hand. She then talks to Swank, telling him about Benny's plan to overthrow Mr. House and take over New Vegas, using the platinum chip, showing him the chairman agreement offer as well as the engraved cigarette lighter that she got from Jessup's body back in Boulder City. Swank agrees that this is a big problem and wants to help Ayano. The first thing he does is he gives her back the weapons the door greeter took from her, and then sends Benny up to his room so that Ayano can ambush him and take him out. With her weapons returned to her, Ayano runs straight to Benny's room to try and sneak up and take him out, but the man must have eyes in the back of his head because he saw her coming. He's a bit surprised to see that she's still alive, considering he shot her twice in the face before burying her in that grave, but Ayano demands that he hand over the platinum chip. When he refuses, Ayano takes out her katana and slices Benny to bits, then takes the platinum chip off of his corpse. So eager to get back to Mr. House to see her senpai again, does she not bother to check the side room in Benny's suite, and finding the secret that he had hidden there. On her way out, Ayano lets Swank know that Benny is dead and that he's now in charge of the building, and as soon as she walks out of the tops, Volpez and Culta from Nipton appears and gives her the mark of Caesar, stating that his lord wishes to see her at Cottonwood Cove. She doesn't know why the leader of Caesar's Legion would want to see her, but she keeps that in mind as she returns to Mr. House and lets him know that Benny has been taken care of and the platinum chip has been recovered. After upgrading his Securitrons at the Lucky 38, Mr. House tells Ayano that her next task is to go to Caesar's camp at Fortification Hill, not to kill Caesar, but because there is a bunker there that she needs to get into using the platinum chip. She'll just have to get past Caesar's Legion in order to do it. It's fortunate, then, that Ayano was invited by Volpez and Culta to come and see Caesar at his camp. Ayano gets the silent running perk after leveling up again, then heads to the Silver Rush as one of the criers says that they can help her get people really dead. Turns out the Van Graffs and the Silver Rush only sell energy weapons, which Ayano cannot use. But on her way out, Jean-Baptiste Cutting asks for help in finding a girl named Rose of Sharon Cassidy, and Ayano agrees to help him out, thinking this is another matchmaking task. Upon discovering that Rose of Sharon Cassidy is actually that drunkard Cass over at the Mojave outpost that she never spoke to before this, Ayano talks to Cass and convinces her to leave the outpost and go with her back to the Silver Rush to meet with Jean-Baptiste Cutting. Even though she assumed that this was a matchmaking type thing, Yan-chan may have misunderstood the situation.
Hi, I'm Jean-Baptiste, and you're about to stop being a pain in my ass.
With that business out of the way, Yandere-Chan then heads towards Cottonwood Cove, just as Mr. House instructed. The legionaries that would taken over Cottonwood Cove were a little surprised to see this strangely dressed woman show up, armed to the teeth with knives and a baseball bat and a sword and such, but she shows them the mark of Caesar and realized that this must be the one that their Lord Caesar wanted to talk to, and Cursu Lucullus takes her to the fort. At the fort, Ayano is again forced to give up all of her weapons to be held for her until she's done with her visit, but she manages to slip some knives past them anyway. She then talks to one of the slaves, who happens to be a woman who hangs out in Caesar's camp and finds out how the women here are treated.
You ought to be careful yourself. I overheard some of the legionaries talking about trying you out.
Promising herself to cut the hand off of any legionary that would dare lay a finger on her, Ayano goes and talks with Caesar, who has instructions for her to take the platinum chip that she has with her and use it to destroy whatever Mr. House has in his underground bunker, completely unaware that Mr. House has far more leverage over her than he does, as Mr. House can bring her her senpai, and Caesar cannot. A young girl named Melody asks if Yan-chan can retrieve her toy, Sergeant Teddy, from a legionary named Antony. Ayano agrees to do this and returns the bear to her post-haste. Once at the bunker, the legionaries give Ayano her baseball bat, her shovel, and her katana back, and send her on to their task for her to destroy Mr. House's property. But Ayano talks to Mr. House and assures him that she's on his side since he's promised to bring her senpai back, but that he'd better deliver, or that there won't be enough Securitrons in the world to protect him from her wrath if he double-crosses her. Ayano finds the control panel and inserts the platinum chip, which upgrades all the Securitrons in the bunker. As she heads out, she returns to the console and lets Mr. House know the task is done. Mr. House tells her that this has put her one step closer to being reunited with her senpai. On her way out of the bunker, Ayano gets a little nervous when the Legionnaires take her weapons away again, but Caesar seems to think that the ground shaking a moment ago was actually Ayano destroying what was in the bunker, and not the massive jolt of power from the platinum chip that just activated House's Securitron army, and sends her on a new task to eliminate Mr. House. Ayano tells him that she'll be on her way, and Caesar tells her to return to him once Mr. House is dead. Now at level 14, I of course give Yandere-Chan jury rigging, since it's the super useful skill that allows you to repair any weapons or armor with similar items, which will make maintaining her clothing as well as her weapons much easier, since I can repair the katana with all the knives she's currently carrying. Yandere-Chan would never meet Caesar again, as she wasn't about to betray Mr. House, the only person who knew her and Senpai by name, as well as where Senpai was and how to get him back to her. So she agrees to his next task, which is to go and meet a reclusive tribe known as the Boomers, and make sure to convince them to join Mr. House's side. On her way to the Nellis Air Force Base, Ayano runs into a Nightkin that jumps her from out of nowhere, and fights off a few alien invaders. What they were doing on Earth, and why they would attack now of all times, was a mystery, but she takes them out using her katana sword, even gaining the Lord Death perk in the process. Heading in a straight line toward Nellis, Ayano is stopped by a man named George, who tells her that if she runs out onto the field ahead of him, that she'll be blown apart by the Boomers' howitzers. Ayano tells him that she needs to go and talk to the Boomers, but when George refuses to let her leave without hearing him out and giving her advice on how to avoid the bombardment, Ayano just takes out a weapon and kills him. Turns out either George was lying to Ayano about the bombardment, or the Boomers' howitzers must have jammed or something once she ran out onto their killing field, since no howitzer fire even tried to impede her progress as she raced up to Nellis and demanded to be let in to talk to someone in charge. Ayano was brought to Mother Pearl, the person in charge of Nellis, who asked if she could be bothered to help them out with a few tasks around the Air Force Base, to which Ayano agreed. If she could befriend them, she could get them to join Mr. House. She started by accepting Raquel's task to get rid of some ants in their munitions base and restore power, grabbed another snow globe from Mr. House's collection, accepted a task from Jack, who wanted to meet a girl named Janet who works for the Crimson Caravan, then finds Janet and arranges for her to get to Nellis by talking to Pearl and to Jack himself so that she could make it into Nellis. While waiting for Janet to arrive, Ayano goes ahead and fixes the solar panels over by the power plant, then sees that Jack and Janet have been match-made together.
It's great to finally meet you.
Hi there. It's great to meet you as well.
I'm glad you made it out here. You're even more stunning up close than you were at a distance.
And you're even more handsome up close. Do you think it'll be okay if I hang around here for a little while, so we can get to know each other better?
Of course it would. I'll have you set up with some quarters with some of the other women. Evening. Thank you for getting Janet to Nellis.
Ayano then lets Loyal know that she's repaired the solar arrays, and that she wants the weapon that he's been working on to wipe out the giant ants. So he gives it to her, and she heads off to deal with the ants inside the power plant. Finding the ant mound is easy enough, and then placing the weapon onto it and turning it on wipes out all the ants, leaving her free to switch the power back on, then report back to Raquel that the task has been finished. The Boomer's final task for Ayano is to go to Lake Mead and help them raise a B-29 bomber out of the lake so that they can repair it and fly it into battle. Unfortunately, Lake Mead is guarded by some pretty dangerous lake lurks, and Ayano doesn't have her school swimsuit with her, so she's just going to have to jump in the water and swim all the way down to find the plane. Since she can't use the rebreather as it's not part of the maid and school uniforms mod, Ayano just has to hold her breath as she attaches the ballasts and then raises the plane from the bottom of the lake. I'm allowing the use of Loyal's detonator since it's a tool and not actually a weapon. Ayano lets Loyal know the B-29 has been raised from the lake and gets the Boomers on side for when they battle for Hoover Dam begins, and they will side with Mr. House, just as she wanted, and just as Mr. House wanted. She also completes the snow globe collection for Mr. House. This, too, will bring her closer to her senpai. Although, the fact that Mr. House is still alive tips Caesar off to the fact that Ayano didn't kill him. Her next task is to find out what, if anything, the Omertas are planning in the Gomorrah. So Ayano goes and finds some dirt on Kachino that she uses to blackmail him into revealing that the bosses do have something big planned that involves a lot of guns. After killing Clandon in his sleep, Ayano convinces Troik to destroy the guns using some thermite. She then tells Kachino she's ready to take out the bosses, Nero and Big Saul, using her psychology to turn the two bosses against each other. Hilariously, Nero manages to kill Big Saul before Ayano can even get up out of her seat, and kills him with a knife. Mr. House himself is pleased with Ayano, but Caesar's Legion is not. They have now declared her an enemy of the Legion and will attack her on sight, even as Mr. House instructs her to go and destroy the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. They may act like pseudo-knights of yore, but when they immediately demanded that Ayano remove all of her clothing, it reminded her of a story that her mother told her about a photographer who had preyed on the students of Akademi back in 1989. So she slips past them on her much more righteous quest to destroy them for Mr. House so that she can be reunited with her senpai. Sneaking past the Brotherhood of Steel knights and their laser turrets inside of the bunker that they're hiding out in Hidden Valley, Ayano kills head scribe Taggart and takes his keycard. Then kills Elder McNamara and the two knights guarding him, taking his keycard off his corpse. Then gets the final keycard by killing head paladin Hardin while he's sitting there in his bedroom. With all three key cards in hand, all that's left is for Yan-chan to go and activate the bunker's self-destruct sequence, then run out of there before the place blows.
Single-handedly destroying a Brotherhood of Steel bunker is quite an accomplishment.
Since Ayano could handle the Brotherhood of Steel, Mr. House next tasks her with protecting NCR President Aaron Kimball from being assassinated by Caesar's Legion. So it's back to Hoover Dam. Now, although the NCR knows Ayano's working for Mr. House, they have no reason to suspect her of wrongdoing since she's already helped out the NCR before, so they're going to go ahead and let her use her weapons and give her full access to the area to help them protect Aaron Kimball. The President's vertibird arrives at dawn so that Aaron Kimball can give his speech and present a medal to Private Jeremy Watson. But during the President's speech, Ayano notices one of the NCR's snipers push another off the building near where the President is making his speech. So she quickly heads up there, takes out the legionary disguised as the sniper, and reports it in to Ranger Grant, who cancels the President's speech, but not before a rogue engineer, who also happens to be a Legion spy, tries another shot at killing the President with a knife. Amateur. He should know better than to brandish weapons and attack people directly in front of Senpai. On her way back through Freeside, a thug tries to attack Ayano, but the Securitrons are quick to take him out before he can do any real harm.
NCR President Aaron Kimball survived an assassination attempt at Hoover Dam. Just one more reason to celebrate at one of New Vegas' fine casinos. Thank you.
Mr. House explains to Ayano why President Kimball staying alive is important, and then tasks her with going to the El Dorado substation and using an override chip to power it on. The NCR don't take kindly to her doing this and begin to chase her once she runs out of the El Dorado substation, but ironically run into a bunch of Legion assassins that were also here to try and deal with Ayano, and the NCR and the Legion assassins end up fighting each other while Ayano makes her escape back to the Lucky 38. Only one task remains before Ayano will see her senpai again, and all she has to do is power on the Securitrons at the fort so that they can wipe out Caesar's Legion and then drive the NCR military out of Hoover Dam, thus securing the free economic zone of New Vegas. While Ayano sneaks past the fighting going on between the NCR and the Legion, House's Securitrons provide cover fire, and she's able to slip past the majority of the fighting in order to reach the control room. She convinces the two guards of the door to go and help Colonel Moore instead of guarding the door so she can go in and use the override chip to give Mr. House full access to Hoover Dam. She then heads to the East Side Power Station and flicks out the switch, rerouting all power to the fort, activating the Securitrons that then begin rampaging through the fort. So eager was Ayano to see her senpai again that she charges the fort herself, and challenges the legate himself to direct single combat. The legate tells Ayano that he is going to do unspeakable things to her before he finishes killing her, but this only fuels her to slay him even more. After Ayano tells General Oliver that Mr. House now owns Hoover Dam and not the NCR, Mr. House congratulates Ayano on her success, and I completed Fallout New Vegas as Yandere-Chan. Now all that remains is for Mr. House to fulfill his promise to Ayano and reunite her with her senpai. Hello? Oh, Mr. House. It's good to hear from you. How have you been? Really? Congratulations. Me? No, I am not authorized to contact anyone outside, so this call has been encrypted. What can I do for you, Mr. House? Oh. Yes, the technology has made leaps and bounds since we last talked. You want what? I don't see how that would help you with... Oh, it's not for you. Then who? How am I supposed to base it on someone who died back in the 2020s? Really? I'm sure I could, based on a picture, but what about the program? Oh, really? I suppose an older default would be fine then. I'll need time to build it, but once it's ready, I can have it sent directly to the Lucky 38 instantly. No worries about that. I may have to grease some palms and call in some favors owed to me, but it will arrive within the week, barring any complications on my end regarding the secrecy of this matter. I can't let anyone here know what I'm working on in the meantime. Especially not Father.